Hey everyone, and a massive welcome to the last show of 2022 here on InfoSec Live of the CISO Experience, where we get to engage with and learn from our industry's leaders in a live setting with real, open and honest conversations. I hope you've all had a wonderful Christmas and you've all got some exciting plans for New Year's Eve. But before that, for those that are new to the channel, my name's Simon Linstead. I'm the founder of the InfoSec Live community and also your host for this show today. And sharing stories and best practice over the last few months has led to 27,000 views and 6,000 hours of our content being watched on YouTube by you, our amazing subscribers. So a huge thank you for your engagement this year. And if you'd like to support the wider InfoSec Live community, or indeed buy me a non-alcoholic festive drink, we do have a few ways that you can show your appreciation. We have the ability to purchase super stickers in the YouTube chat if you'd like your question bumped up to the top, and 3 tiers of membership allowing you to show your support in any way that you can. And a big thank you to Liam Conaglian for being our latest premium member. And a very special shout out to someone who's in the audience today, Alana Boyajian, for her very generous donation this month to the community. Thank you, Alana, and thank you, Liam. Your support really does mean a lot. But whether you join or not, being here and engaging with our content is what really matters. And if you're watching this live, please do like and subscribe. We want to make these events as interactive as possible, so make sure you drop any questions in the chat. Mark them with a big Q for my aging eyesight, because it's you, our audience, who make these events so special. And before we bring on our guest today, I want to just take a moment to thank our amazing show sponsor for helping us grow and provide even more free and engaging content to our community. And for us, sponsorship is about partnering with the right organizations. And No Name Security, in my opinion, is the only company out there taking a complete proactive approach to API security. Working with 20% of the Fortune 500 and covering the entire API security scope across 3 pillars: posture management, runtime security, and API testing. They're privately held, remote first, with headquarters in Silicon Valley and offices in Tel Aviv and Amsterdam. And a link to find out more about how No Name Security can help your organization is in the description of the video below. And also, if you're looking for work, make sure you check out their career page, as they are hiring at the moment as well. Now, the exciting bit. Our guest today is a very exciting one. It's Art Ocain. Art is Airiam's CISO and field CISO/CIO, a visionary leader and IT business strategist. He's got technical strengths in zero trust, resilience engineering, cloud architecture, incident response, security strategy, and business continuity planning. And his business strengths are leadership, lean, developing culture, and of course, extreme ownership, which I'm looking forward to discussing. Really looking forward to digging deep into the challenges and successes in the industry. Don't forget to jump in for the Ask Me Anything if you're there in the chat. Let's stop waffling, Simon, and bring Art on. good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever it may be.
Hello. Yeah, it's 2 in the afternoon here on the East Coast of the US, and wow, your production here is just amazing. Like, I haven't seen any kind of live YouTube experience where it's just the production level is this
Do
height.
you know?
I just
You know what? That really does mean a lot because for those that know, the extent of the team producing the event is myself and my wife. So it's amazing what you can do with a MacBook and a little bit of familial support. Art is what I'd like
That's
to say.
awesome.
But thank you for your kind words. It means a lot, and I'm very excited to have you on. I've given a very brief intro about you, but would you mind just taking a step back and telling our audience a little bit more about yourself and how you've ended up coming into the industry?
Yeah, yeah. So I started in IT about 25 years ago. I was at University of Maryland studying math and needed a job because I was a broke college kid. And there was a data center right off campus. So I started working at the data center and really kind of just continued in IT then and fell in love with infrastructure, fell in love with recovery, business continuity, things like that, and building resilient systems and really, resilience planning and load balancing, things like that, and designing, cloud infrastructure that's really resilient and able to take on, DDoS attacks and high level outages and stuff like that. That was really what my interest was. And then ransomware happened. And kind of dragged me into it as far as incident response. And when I was pulled into, ransomware, when I first had our first experiences with ransomware, it was to recover. It was, hey, our systems are down and we need to recover. And the first incident I was involved in, it was a web app company and had thousands of servers down. And they had no backups, no infrastructure to restore everything. And they had already been trying to repair it themselves for days. And I got involved and pulled in my team, and we pulled some all-nighters and wrote scripts to automate everything we were doing, and got the company back up and running in 3 days.
Wow.
So thousands of servers down, no backups, but we had them up and running in 3 days, so they were able to make money and serve their customers. So that kind of threw me directly into ransomware, and after that, really, I had to. Uh, I was still active in recovery, but I had to learn about security and what this really was and how was the attack happening and why was it happening and what was motivating the threat actors and really how do we stop this. And so I became a part of that life cycle and have stayed there and stayed really heavily involved in incident response. And as a result, I have great relationships now with cyber insurance carriers and CISOs of cyber insurance carriers are great to know, and I hope you have some on your show as well. And cyber legal, and it's just been a good ecosystem to be a part of to learn really security. And so now, although I have this strong IT background, it's really my life is around security
Yeah, let's take. I want to take a step back.
now.
You mentioned the insurance word there,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
it's topical at the moment. Couple of
Yeah.
reasons. One, Lloyd's came out earlier on in the year. I think it was October, September time, maybe, where they said that they're going to remove, I suppose, acts of war become null and void in your policies, which I think was to be expected. But again, quite a tricky area to police and actually monitor, I would argue. And then yesterday we see an article in the Financial Times here in the UK where they're basically saying they think that cyber insurance is going to become untenable
Hmm.
moving forward. I mean, from an insurance perspective, I spent
Yes.
25 years in the insurance industry. I don't think the bean counters have got enough data to go on to work out what they're doing, or enough of an understanding and advice around what they should actually be looking at. What do you think the big challenges are with regards to insurance?
Oh, in insurance, I think there's a couple things. The risk is accelerating faster than your ability to underwrite.
Yeah,
So there's financial systems that have to support underwriting these, and the costs of recovery are millions of dollars when there's an incident, and they are happening so frequently that it's impossible for to have a good return on this. And really, that's why we've seen them really ratcheting up the requirements to keep insurance now. So if you've had to deal with a cyber renewal lately, the renewals now are saying, hey, do you have a SOC? Do you have EDR in place? Do you have MFA on everything? It's like it's a real thorough questionnaire. And because they're realizing that all this risk that is around their insurance solution, their product is really, it's going to cost them a lot of money if those controls aren't in place. And it's not a bad thing them requiring all those controls. Those are actually the right controls for you to
Yeah.
have. But it's that they are having to raise the bar because of what ransomware has done to them.
Do you think that we'll get to the point where you have to have demonstrable proof that you've got these things? Because at the moment, a lot of it's checkbox, right? And it's
Yep.
mark
Yep.
your own homework. And I've seen firms marking their own homework over the last 18 months, and it isn't a particularly pretty situation. And I think unless regulation or I don't know, some kind of push towards transparency and actually disclosing what you have in place rather than ticking a box might be a help.
Right, right. Yeah, so, taking right now, it is very much tick the box. Some insurance carriers will pen test you or do at least at the very minimum a vulnerability scan, but some of them are using automated pen test solutions, which will, test the front door.
Yeah,
But none of them are requiring kind of internal controls audit or scans at this time. So you could have a great, the front door sealed, but everything inside your network is just complete shit show. So they need to really get that data from inside the network now. And there's not a great solution for that. We were thinking of coming up with a solution here at Airiam for and partnering with insurance providers so that if an insured wanted us to share data, it could potentially, lower their insurance premium because we'd be able to validate all these controls.
yeah.
But
It's funny you should say that. I got headhunted by a company, I think it was September time last year, called Storm Guidance, who
mm,
were based on a tropical island somewhere. It sounded lovely, but they were doing exactly that. So they were
mhm,
working with people like Aviva and other insurers to
mhm.
provide, I suppose, a low cost solution to businesses looking for insurance and also reassurance, I suppose, to the insurers who are looking to take on the clients as well.
Right, exactly. So it's almost like that verification is almost like uh, there are some insurance companies like uh, State Farm, which will give you a bug to put in the car that'll tell you the insurance company how fast you've been driving, that kind
Yeah,
of thing. It's gathering data. So that kind of data is what's missing right now in cyber insurance, so that they're unable to underwrite, get reinsurance things properly because it's unknown. If you look at the book of business of a cyber insurance carrier, you have no idea how much risk that actually is.
Well,
Um,
and again, the fact of how much that risk changes. I mean, I
yeah,
worked in finance where we talked about, financial risk, investment risk, capacity for loss, and all this changing on a cyclical basis or reactive to markets. But the cybersecurity industry's threat vectors are changing so fast. I don't see how they can ever keep up with it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it is becoming untenable. So in order to keep insurance, it's either deal with constantly increasing controls, which is reality right now,
Yeah,
or increasing premiums, which is also reality right now. So there are some clients that I've worked with lately that have chosen just to self-insure, and
yeah,
if they're able to, that's great. If they have that kind of liquidity, but a lot of companies don't. So cyber insurance is just reality, and what we've seen in the last couple of years is that everybody's going to get hit. It's
yeah,
not really doesn't matter what you do at this point. You're going to get hit. That doesn't mean you should stop trying. Prevention's super important. Layer in these controls the best you can, but what we've learned is that if there's a motivated threat actor who, whether it's state funded or, commercial, if they're trying to get in, if they're looking for a way and investing the time to get in, they're going to get in. It's
they
just
are.
the fact.
What about the? I'll tell you one thing I was thinking. Excuse me.
Hmm.
I was reading through the press the other day. Well, it was mostly advertising press actually, and it was a lot of stats and figures about how big, how much, what is the financial impact of a breach, what's the financial impact of ransomware, and these figures are so high, right? That if
Yep.
you're a small to medium business, why are you going to bother engaging with it? Because you know, a 3.5 million or a £5 million loss would devastate most small to medium businesses. There isn't any
Yeah,
budget
absolutely.
perhaps to do too much about it. So I wonder whether the messaging doesn't help. You know, I know
Yes.
it's terrible. We know the numbers are big, but
Yep.
I think it's scaring off a lot of businesses to actually engage with and improve their security.
Yeah, yeah. I think there has to be kind of a middle road right now. Right now that everything is scary, and as a professional in dealing with incident response constantly and just seeing it, it's almost like getting browbeaten by it, by the reality of it, and the reality. It's depressing. It's to the point where you're like, okay, there really is no way to really protect yourself here. So you have to really hedge your risks here. You have to say, okay, we're going to do what we can on prevention, do what we
Yeah.
can on resilience, and do what we can on insurance. And resilience is that piece that's missing. If you build in systems so that you can bounce back quickly from that kind of attack, then you may not need as much insurance. You may not need as
Yeah.
much other investment because, hey, if we get ransomware, we need insurance to cover breach notification, any kind of fines, HIPAA related stuff, that kind of stuff. But we know our systems are going to come back because we have resilient systems in place and we
And
have a
again,
way
you,
to
you
bounce back.
don't you don't need a shiny tool always to
Yep.
do that. I mean, you look at
Yeah.
people who use, I don't know, Amazon Web Services
Yep.
or any other providers out there. By making a copy and having different logins, and you know, you're potentially saving yourself an absolute nightmare by just by
Absolutely.
doing something simple like that. But again, it's back to the messaging in the industry. I think it
Hmm.
isn't about doing the simple things, which is probably what we do need to do first. It's about buying the best plug-in tool that does
Right.
everything for you. And but then that isn't just cyber, is it? That's the world. You know,
No, absolutely.
anything for taking responsibility or work away from us is so much better. I just want to just jump in the chat because we've had a few
Okay.
questions in, and I want to make sure
Yeah, I
we
saw
pick them
some
all
good
up.
ones come in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I want to thank GB Orr as well for helping Carrie out there. I know Carrie, you've been practicing with Carly, and GB's
Mhm,
mentioned started with Ubuntu on a split hard drive, but quickly
mhm.
found it was a very mainstream version of Linux. If you can, try Parrot. I think it's an easier version of Carly, and I agree with that. I went
Mhm.
to Parrot after trying Carly first just to get my head around that. It was quite
Yep.
tricky. Any tips from you, Art, on that?
Yeah, so people are asking me a lot, how do I use Linux or how do I learn Linux? And they think they're going to take like a class and learn Linux. The way to learn Linux is to use Linux.
Yeah,
Is install Linux on a box. If you're dual booting like GB is recommending, that would be great. But if you have another box that you can use as that dedicated box, then use that box. But just use Linux. Install Ubuntu on the box. Figure out how to surf the web, figure out how to use it for your everyday stuff. Work in it.
Figure out how to update your libraries. Figure out how to do the stuff that I was struggling
Exactly.
with because I tried to do everything the wrong way round.
Exactly. Exactly. Fighting with it and wrestling with it is how you use it. Oh,
Yeah,
I can't get sound. Okay, I need to figure out my sound driver. And then you're
yeah,
fighting with that for the next 3 days.
yeah.
It's that kind of learning is how you learn it. And then once you've figured out how to use it like as a user, figure out how to use it as a system administrator, being like, okay, let's create other users. Figure out how to protect folders in here, how the permission structure works. Figure out how to install Apache or Nginx and set up a web server. And even if it's not open to the web, you don't want it open to the web at this point because you don't know what you're doing yet.
No.
So don't open a port, don't open 443 or 80 to the world. But install a web server on it and try it. Do your own little hello world web server, web server with just a plain HTML page, and play around with getting it served up and what is involved there, and then figure out how the host files work, how DNS works, how IP addressing works, and stuff like that. That's really how you get in there and learn.
I see someone struggling at the moment with Blueberry on Endeavour. Brilliant.
I haven't tried Endeavor OS.
No,
Yep.
me neither. And I'm not going to now after that comment. I'm just sticking with Carrie's
Mhm.
question because Carrie's trying to break into the industry.
Mhm.
And you mentioned data centers earlier. And I think the
Yep.
question really is, without cutting off half of your body completely, bringing that up on the screen,
Yep.
for people who want to break in and have got some experience but no industry experience, what are some good jobs to get into first to get the experience? Because this is something that comes up every time. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
the job market is a tricky one. So any advice for people like Carey?
So unpopular answer is get into help desk. So
Yeah,
you know, once you've established that base level of understanding, if you have installed Linux on your home box and you know how to install Apache and restart Apache when there's a problem and basic Linux troubleshooting, get involved with, if there is a local data center, or whether even an MSP. An MSP is a great way. A managed service provider is a great way to learn a lot of skills very quickly. 5 years at an MSP or 3 years at an MSP is like 15 years of real life, just because of the amount of stuff you're thrown into. So get involved with those, and you can come in as a help desk. You can come in as level one. I'm just answering the phone and figuring out how to fix this problem. If you're help desk for a data center, it'll be a different kind of problem than a help desk for an MSP. Help desk
yeah,
for an MSP, it might be one phone call might be my printer doesn't work, and the next phone call might be my server doesn't work, and the next phone call might be my wireless doesn't work. If you're working for a data center help desk, it'll be like my server's not responding. So it's a different kind of thing, and my server's not work scripts aren't working on my server, or it's not serving pages, or DNS is broken, things like that. And so, but getting in at that help desk is uh, really the way to start getting immersed in that. And 1 to 2 years in that.
it's back to what you said about learning how to use Linux, though, isn't it? You know,
Absolutely.
hands on is the best way to learn anything. And I know Kerry's made a comment saying, think maybe help desk jobs aren't any good to get into. I think there's conflicting opinions out there, right?
Mhm,
And I've seen loads of people succeed
mhm,
coming across from help desk. And Gregor
right,
mentions there, help desk is hard but worth it. And look at,
mhm,
I'm sure everyone in the audience knows Kevin Apollinario, who's got I think 50,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel where he helps people break into help desk
mhm,
and IT.
mhm.
Well,
Yep.
guess what he's done the last month? He's got a job at Sentinel One. He's now in cybersecurity.
There you go.
And if that isn't an example of how to use help desk to break into the industry, I don't know
Yep.
what is.
Yeah, I'd say it's like 1 to 2 years in help desk is a good way to get your foot in the door and launch from there to somewhere else. Once you have that experience, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be at the same company, but it could be. But you can apply for another job, and now you have some experience on your resume, and you're able to work.
Yeah,
That's really what they're looking for, is something before. Nobody wants to be the first guinea pig, to work with you. But
no.
once you have some experience, you can go anywhere then.
And I think again from your comment, Kerry, there's a lot of help desk positions that are remote that you can do from home now, so it could suit for that as well. Next question, Yaya, good question. Have you worked in an OT environment? And if you
Mhm.
have, all good. That makes the
Yeah.
second question much better. What's the most challenge you've had, and how did you solve it? Good question.
Yeah, so securing OT is really hard, because most manufacturing environments will buy, Siemens PLC controllers, programmable logic controllers, or other OT devices to run manufacturing. This controller runs our conveyor belt. This one runs these pumps. This one is doing the chopping machine. Whatever, they're completely automated. You might have thousands of these devices in your manufacturing facility. Manufacturers expect to buy these and never touch them again.
Yeah.
So a lot of times these are 10, 15, 20-year-old devices, which either there aren't any patches for, the company that built it went out of business.
And there's only
They're
one person at the firm who knows how it works.
Exactly, exactly. And they're working off of, there's several different protocols that they use, and some of them may be really old protocols or clear text, things like that. Once a attacker gets into an OT environment, it's really hard to get them out, because usually they're able to do whatever they want once they're in. So, perimeter protection for OT is really important. But as well as doing a multi-tiered segmented approach to OT. So, there's security models like the Purdue security model for OT, but there for ICS, but there's a lot of other models, and solutions. I just like to segment and approach it almost zero trust. So,
Yeah.
okay, we have, the if you're in a tire company, let's say you have the chemical mixers, and it's mixing the mix to go into to get rolled out, and you have all the rubberizing agents, the vulcanization agents, and stuff getting poured in. Um, Keep that on its own segment, away from all the rest of your OT network.
Yeah.
and have communications coming from the SCADA to it. Um, and that's all that's allowed in and out to that, so that if that gets hit, the rest of your OT network's not also getting hit by that attacker. So
Yeah.
just micro segmenting everything, and then where you can control access to it to only what needs to have access to it, and then and that's kind of that zero trust approach of kind of bringing in that perimeter as close as you can to the thing you're trying to protect.
And you personally, Art, what are the biggest successes you've had in the OT space? Is it the segmentation or?
Yeah, yeah. So with me, I mean, a lot of times the challenge has been that we can't get them to buy the right stuff or the new stuff that doesn't have all the vulnerabilities. And so the success has really been to do the microsegmentation and to collect logging at a SIM. So from all those devices. So that is a lot of work configuring every single one of these thousands of OT devices to log to a central log place. But getting that visibility, that is what, once you have that visibility, then you can say, oh, someone's hacking over through the SCADA system, and they're trying to get into the conveyor system, that kind of thing, and you can see what's going on. That is the first level to being able to stop it. Then you see how the attack happened. But that's kind of that, building that visibility, and then the second thing is just shutting off the SCADA from the outside. If you're able to control your OT network from home, so's the attacker.
Yeah.
So making it so you can't get into it from home is kind of the best way.
And I think I made a flippant comment about organisations having one person who knows the systems.
Hmm.
All
Yep.
all joking aside, moving forward, the people with the experience on these systems are going to be retiring in the next 10
Yes.
years. Then what?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be either the companies are going to be faced with, okay, I need to hire some
I
OG, or
Yeah,
I'm going to have to
buy some
replace
new
all my
kit.
gear with, yeah,
Yeah,
buy
well,
newer
so
stuff. Yeah,
maybe that'll be the way to get them to buy some more up to date equipment in the first place.
exactly.
Moving subjects a little bit.
Mhm.
Richard, question here from Splodge: how do you keep the personal motivation up to carry on fighting the ongoing attacks and changes? And this is a great question because someone asked me the other day, "Do you want to be a CISO when you grow up?" And the answer was no. Yeah, the answer was no, because I've had huge levels of stress in my life before, and it didn't do me any favors. So, how do you manage that, Art?
Yeah, just caffeine and anger. Honestly, it's I think incident response number one is something that burns people out. People usually aren't in incident response, for longer than 2 or 3 years, because it just makes you cynical and hate your life, and it makes you really kind of depressed about the outlook of security. So it is hard to not be burnt out, and it is hard to stay positive and motivated about it. So with me, it's usually just trying to take that time, when I'm not involved in an incident, to do things like this, and to do things where I'm growing my skill set and growing my career, and knowing that there's more out there than just dealing with problems all day,
Yeah,
and really trying to position myself to be more that strategic leader than to be the guy pulling the levers all the time. That
yeah.
that is a move upwards that I think is natural for me, but a lot of people struggle with. But is
I
really
think
the
not everyone wants it either. We've
right.
had this discussion
Absolutely.
a few times on this show, and the way I like to put it across is we talk about a skills gap, and people talk
Mhm.
about that at the entry level, and I disagree with that.
Mhm.
I think there's
Huge
a
at the leadership level. Yeah.
a misunderstanding or an understanding gap, perhaps at that level, but at the higher level, not everyone who's got the experience to be a CISO wants the responsibility, or even particularly wants to do that sort of job.
Right, right, exactly. Um, I think that there's a stark difference between an amazing engineer and an amazing, leader and C-suite executive. So it's great if a CISO can be both,
Yeah,
but that's not always the case. Being a chief information security officer really, uh, the only security geekdom that you're going to have is with your security team. The rest of the time, you're talking to the board and you're talking to the other executive team, and they're really looking at you to improve the risk of the company. And they want to talk to you about business in business terms, and they want to know what their financial risk is right now. They want to know things like that. So that's a hard change. It's a hard pivot for people that are just used to looking at vulnerabilities and 0 days and dissecting malware all day. Going from that to actually starting to think about the business as a whole
Yeah.
is a hard change for a lot of people. And I think one of the reasons a lot of people want to make that move is because they think it's just the money. It's they're going to make
Yeah.
more money doing that. But I know some security engineers that are paid very well, and have an amazing future ahead of them without ever going into being a top level executive at the
I'd
company.
like to add to that as well, from someone who has had a lot of money in the past, which made him very miserable and depressed. It isn't the answer. And I'm not saying that money makes you miserable, but what money does is it's an amplifier. It amplifies the state that you're in at the time. And if you're in a good place, money's marvelous, but it certainly
Mm,
doesn't bring happiness and contentment, would be my counter
absolutely.
argument to anyone saying they're looking to get into it for the money. And the other one would be there's easier jobs if you want to earn money.
Yep.
Surely, than being a CISO. Now, look, I've got a prepared list of questions down here that we need to
All
get
right.
onto. So, the one I want to talk about first is something that's been very topical since November the 30th when this came out, and it's
Mm,
Chat GPT.
mhm.
And I noticed you've been playing around on there a bit today. You've done a couple of
Absolutely.
posts on LinkedIn, and I've
Yep.
been frantically playing with it and trying to understand how it works and see what the outputs are myself. But it seems, and one of the headlines I read today was that this is an iPhone moment for the
Yep.
AI industry, and I agree with that. I think
Yep.
it's the interest we've seen, the amount of people using it on LinkedIn to create posts,
Mhm.
create amusing articles and all this other
Mm,
stuff. It's shown us that AI is here and it really is here to
yep.
stay. And now this might not be, it's not the future now. And we always talk about the future and what's going to happen next. And
Yep.
that's great. But let's focus on where we are with this now and how this affects the security community.
Mm.
So I'm going to
Yep.
throw that over to you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, first, AI has been evolving pretty quickly in the last year or two. Jasper AI has kind of, been around, which is used heavily by content creators,
Yeah.
that want to spin out a quick blog post, that kind of thing. You'll feed it some seed information, and then it'll finish the article for you, basically, in whatever style you choose. So that's kind of similar, but Chat GPT has kind of, put that on steroids, and it can code. It can do
Yeah.
really anything now. So, I asked yesterday, I asked ChatGPT, give me C sharp code for changing the my Google Nest thermometer from the internet and using Google API. And it wrote code for me. It wrote pages of code, for me to do this. And the fact that you can be a programmer now, and that's your Google now. Like Stack Overthrow can go out the window. You can just go into Chat GPT and say, "I need to code this," and it'll in whatever language. And for security professionals, it's very useful because there's so many query languages,
Yeah.
KQL, etc., Jupyter notebooks, that are, people are using depending on what their sim is, and they need to be able to query what's going on. And you can ask ChatGPT to build a query for you now, and it'll build a query. So it's very useful for things like that. You can use it. I imagine that we will potentially use it for threat hunting and things like that in the future,
Yeah.
where we'll just ask it to look for something and it'll build a query and look for it. That's how I imagine using it. But that same code that I had it right, because it was able to do that so easily, able to do the same thing for attackers. So
Yeah.
an attacker wants C sharp code or Python code to be able to do XYZ against an API and impersonate you. Or, if they want to brute force an API using code, it would be easy enough for them to have ChatGPT write that code.
But
And
so
I think
we've been here before. Was it
Mhm.
10 years ago? IBM's was it, what was it called?
Watson.
Watson.
Yep.
Watson. That's it. Yeah, and that was. I think they've actually sold that off now.
Mm.
So that was going to be the most exciting thing, wasn't it? And we see this a lot in the tech industry. It's the next big thing, the next big thing. Do you think this actually is the next big thing, though?
I think it's well, they said that the operating cost of it is like $3 million a day right now for the VC company that is funding them. That's a lot right now without being able to monetize it. So they've got to figure out a way to monetize it.
Yeah,
But and when they do, that may stop how we use it. Right now, I'm willing to use it for anything, and it's super consumable. I can just open it up and use it. But if there's a pay gate, then it probably won't be used as much the way we're already starting to use it. However, if somebody like Google acquires them and just builds it into what they do so that it becomes part of our normal use, then yes, I think it'll dramatically change how we use everything. And that technology being out there, Jasper before it and other AI engines and now Chat GPT, I think that it's just going to continue to evolve and we're going to have closer to the real AI that we've been imagining is, for years we've been saying, okay, let's just throw machine learning at this problem. Let's just throw AI at this problem. But the fact that I can really ask GPT a question and give it a data set and it answers the question for me, and that
that's
is
scary.
basically, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
it's
exactly.
it's. I mean, the only other thing I'd add to that is I'm ignorant on how this works. So
Mhm,
this isn't the final version. I was doing some reading up on
mhm.
Wikipedia about it earlier. So is it, whilst they're spending $3 million a day, is it learning and evolving every day? The more people use it, is that how it works?
So there's right now, I mean, you saw what I was trying to do with it earlier today. I was
Yeah,
trying to get it to look at live internet information. And so they have it, so it's not. But it does learn from what you're giving it. So it is learning, and it says that it will evolve its future responses based on what you've given it so far. So, it is in a learning state where it's learning from that data. I think that that is that connecting it to the internet and just letting it have carte blanche access to
that's
whatever.
like. Have you seen that film I, Robot? Isn't that what
Yes,
happens?
exactly, exactly. That's that, that doomsday moment, I think.
Yeah.
So I think they have to control how it gets fed right now because I think if they just let it go, it would probably be one of those scary scenarios. So I
Just,
think that,
just another disaster in the world that's falling apart at the moment. Yeah,
yep. Yeah, so these companies that are making this technology, I mean, they're right on the obviously on the cutting edge, but they have to make some decisions about
yeah.
how it's going to be used and how they're going to control it in the future. Yep.
We've got a couple of questions around that. I'll go to Shane's first, and sorry for cutting off half of your body with this one.
Mhm. Uh-huh.
With the evolving technology that may reduce the workload of some positions and potentially eliminate others, what areas of cybersecurity do you see growing? And this is someone asking is new to the industry. Thanks for the
Mhm.
question, Shane.
Yeah, I'd say that one of the things that is going to be, and I already see it. That's why I'm trying to use it as much as possible. You're going to be they're going to be looking for people that know how to use this technology, so it's we want somebody who can do AI analytics against our security data. We want somebody who knows how to deal with the risks for these AI solutions, things like that. So I think it yes, it may make some things easier and may make some things redundant, but uh, every time there's some kind of improvement there, it opens up the door for more opportunity. And I think that learning how to use those technologies is probably your best opportunity right now,
Yeah,
is say, okay, let me see if I can take Azure Sentinel and Chat GPT and write something so that I can use Azure Sentinel with Chat GPT, that kind of thing.
that's the scary bit. Richard or Splodge put here. I remember years ago, early days of computers, input errors were always blamed on the computer creating an error. How things have changed, and that then goes back to, I think, another point that you made, which is here. Due to the human capability to err, is this a bad thing?
Yeah, yeah. So I think that, we're obviously it's learning from the data we're giving it. And so we can learn bad things from the data that we're getting it. We've seen that with chatbots on Twitter.
Yeah.
You let a chatbot go on Twitter for a couple days and it just learns all kinds of racist things and just says offensive stuff all day because it's used to seeing people troll each other all day.
I
So
thought we called that free speech, don't we?
exactly, exactly. So I think that if there isn't some amount of control over the data that's given to it, or some
Yeah.
way for it to recognize what's really not right data, then
But then
it's
who controls the controllers? This is the problem, isn't it?
exactly,
And
exactly.
this is the whole problem with society in general, I think, not
Yep.
just AI.
It's the Cloudflare problem, yeah, where they
It
were
is.
when they were shutting down, websites that were for terrorism and human trade and stuff like that, that they were being criticized for shutting down, these other websites, and it's like, well, um, they're making a decision as a corporation on what values they want to stand for, but as we go into more into AI, it's um, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made, and I'm not one to say that the government should be controlling all this. Like, I think that that will just put the brakes on everything. But
Yeah.
I definitely think that there needs to be some kind of a lot of forethought before it just gets released. Yep.
Well, apparently Rebecca says she's going to do it, so we'll hold you to that, Rebecca. I
Awesome.
think, yeah, we need someone. Okay, next question then. Obviously, Gartner reports, all the other reports are coming out the last month. A lot of them are reading very similar to the ones I read last year on what
Mhm.
the threats are going to be moving forward.
Mhm.
What do you see the biggest threats for us, apart from Chat GPT, in the next few
Yeah.
years?
Well, so I mean, previous years we said ransomware.
Yeah,
Ransomware really cooled down this year when it came to really the Russia-Ukraine conflict. When that started, our evil was arrested just before that conflict started by Russia. I believe they would just became a part of Russia's offensive capability.
yeah,
But Conti kind of self-destructed because half of them were in Russia, half of them were in Ukraine, and so we saw that basically the two biggest threat actor groups went down. There still is ransomware, but it's nowhere near to the volume that it was before this year. So what we're seeing right now is that there's a lot more around financial fraud and email fraud and things like that. And Corvus Insurance just did a study and just released a study saying that that's really what they're seeing from a claims perspective is people that are putting in cyber claims saying that they've been had. It's not because of ransomware as much as it was previously. Now it's about business email compromise and fraud
it's
relating
fraud.
to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think for me, I agree. I think we're going to see a huge uptick on that for the simple reason we're seeing the global economy go into a recession.
Yep.
When people need to feed their families, they do that any way that they can. And,
Yep.
you know, phishing emails, all this kind of
Yep.
thing is a very cheap and easy and effective way to
Yep.
start attacking people and trying to make money. And then you look at things like ransomware as a service that you can go allegedly on the dark
Yep.
web and buy for $500. It doesn't take an economist to work out where the problems are going to be in the next 24 months, I think. And then just to make it worse, we've gamified the way we teach people how to hack things using things like, which are brilliant, by the way, try hack me and hack the box. But
Yep.
again, a little bit of knowledge in the wrong hands can be quite dangerous.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And there's not a whole lot of difference between a hacker that's doing actual offensive hacking, and destructive hacking, and a hacker that is on the defensive side. Really the only thing the only difference is a moral switch got flipped,
Yeah.
where it said, okay, something happened in my life where this is okay right now,
Yeah.
and so I'm of the belief that that could be anybody at any time. So it's really. But yeah, the security landscape is kind of scary right now. We have ransomware, is probably going to accelerate again, and we have the financial fraud going on. We have third party risk and insider threat higher than
Yeah.
ever. You know, everybody now is getting hacked through their vendors and their partners.
Well, it's
So
supply chain risk has got to be
yeah,
up there, hasn't it, for next year and
absolutely.
the year after? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
I
you
think
buy
the more, and
software.
without wanting to, because this wasn't intentional, but now I'm thinking how I'm going to say this is going to sound like it's a plug for our sponsor, but it isn't. However, if you want to talk about API security, do speak to No
Absolutely.
Name. But I think the fact that the more connected everything is, the more and more
Mhm,
we're using APIs. Again,
mhm.
that's going to be another huge area, perhaps over the next year or two, that we're going to see an increase in attacks.
Absolutely, and most companies don't have visibility on that. We've spent a lot of time looking at everybody's endpoints and their servers, and No Name gives you a solution to be able to look at what's happening and how people are using your APIs. And every company now is integrating with everything, and you're trying to be SSO and everything more and more integrated. And there's a lot of API stuff going on, and a lot of times you don't even know what's under the hood of the software that you're using or the
Right.
APIs you're using. They're calling other things, they're using other libraries. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of risk here that is going to continue to accelerate and be a problem.
Absolutely. And another good question from Shane here, which relates back to what we were just talking about. Do you think insider attacks will increase with a recession? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a big LinkedIn post about this. I got a ton of traffic right before, right around Thanksgiving. But with all the layoffs that we've seen in tech, the Twitter layoffs, Amazon, Facebook, et
Yeah.
cetera, and big tech, it's just going to continue as the recession goes on. There's going to be more and more of that going on.
Well, it's back
And
to the opportunist side of crime, isn't it? What these people are
absolutely.
going to come in and start offering. I think I saw an article last week where some people have already been offered financial incentives
Yes.
for imparting information. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Lapsus, that's their playbook.
Yeah.
So that's how they got into Nvidia and all these other big tech companies, is not through just hacking and amazing skills. I'm sure they have people with amazing hacking skills on their team, but why do that when you can just offer somebody, you know, a couple hundred K in order to get into the network, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it is really hard at this point when companies are doing layoffs. There's recession, people are already, okay, am I next, am I going to be cut next? Or they're seeing all their friends get cut, they're seeing corporate culture be
Yeah.
poor at a lot of companies. And a lot of companies, there's been, well, with constant inflation, there's been wage stagnation. There's been a lot of people who've been really getting poorer working at these companies while the companies are getting richer, and
Yeah.
they're looking at, hey, all I have to do is let Lapsus in, and they'll pay me. Um, sure, and then all they have to do is say that they were intimidated or whatever by Lapsus.
I'll
So
tell you
that's
what, if I was the CEO of an energy provider at the moment, I'd be the one the most nervous because
yep,
especially in the UK and Europe, I'm not going to make comment on the US because I'm not sure how the market is. Their profits the last year,
yep,
considering the rest of us are now paying 4 times as much for our energy bills,
yep,
you see the profits they're sitting on are absolutely huge. The
yep,
government here introduced a small levy on that last year, which was a drop in the ocean. But other than
mhm,
that, you've got a lot of disgruntled customers, a lot of disgruntled employees, and I think in the energy sector we could see a lot of insider threats. If I was
absolutely,
Lapsus, that's who I'd be targeting right now. Good job I'm not
yeah.
a criminal, hey?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, lapse is just the big one. I'm sure
Yeah,
that it's happening a lot, and disgruntled employees also probably know the value of the data that they're sitting on, so they may just be the one to look for opportunity to breach too right now. So yeah, going into recession is not the time to be in security right now. Having to deal with this. So one of the things is, how do you deal with that kind of threat? How
yeah.
do I, as a security professional, stop inside threat where somebody, as an authenticated user, is able to allow somebody in as them, MFA challenge accept them into the network so they have access to everything? What do you do to mitigate that? I mean, a zero trust program works great, but again, Lapsus is looking for administrators and
Yeah,
things like that who would have the keys to the castle
of course.
anyway. So how do you mitigate that? And really the only thing is to treat it like you would treat financial fraud, is, look for those red flags and things like that in your
Yeah.
employees. But easier
It's
said
well,
than
it's back
done.
to it's back to controls, isn't it? You
Exactly.
mentioned it at the start of the discussion. That's what it's down to, and I think we should finish off now on people, because it
Mhm.
addresses part of what we're talking about now. It also addresses, I think, Splodge's question: are there easy answers to make the world cyber safer, or is there going to be a mixed response? We lots of focus on process, rightly so.
Yep.
Lots of focus on technology. Nowhere near enough focus on people. That's my
Right.
my opinion. How do you get people in your organization on board? Because again, if you've got the culture right, you've got a good working environment, you've got
Mhm.
good relationships with your team members, that in itself should reduce down the
Mhm.
likelihood of insider threats, you would have thought.
Yep. Yeah. And we realize as a service provider that is doing cybersecurity services for businesses that we have the keys to the castle that the attacker is trying to get. So we've implemented things like just in time. So if I want access to this system, someone else has to approve it. Even if, I can't just walk in and have God mode. It has to be granted by somebody else on the team. So we've applied that to just about everything. Just layering in controls like that is what we've begun to do, and really making sure that we do have complete visibility and protection over all of the attack surfaces and threat surfaces that really have access to our critical stuff. Uh, the threat surfaces are just getting huge. Like it's
Yeah.
impossible right now to really protect everything. But we can identify what are the priorities. What are the keys to the castle? What are the crown jewels in your network? And say, okay, I want to layer some protections over these. I want to put, MFA and just in time in front of all of these most critical things. That's how we're approaching it with technology. The people are another story.
Yeah.
We can do all we can to try to give them security awareness stuff, but really it comes down to companies just treating the people right.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do from a like that's I try to do that as a leader all I can, but I can't seem
The bigger the organization, the harder it becomes as well.
exactly, exactly. Yep.
I think, I mean, what were you, so advising a firm, so you're brought in as part of Airiam to
Mhm,
engage with the firm and help them with their security posture. Big
mhm,
part of that is engaging the workforce and
yep.
educating them. How do you go about that? Do you have an off the shelf solution or do you do it slightly differently?
Yeah, so we have some mixed stuff. So I usually use an off-the-shelf solution for, basic security awareness training and stuff like that, just so I can do it at scale. But also meeting with the team, especially the ones that are, when I'm meeting with the company, meeting with the executives, the people that have control over money, the people that are controlling those high-risk resources, that are going to be the target of the attack. Those are the people that I want to talk to and make sure that they understand really what kind of risks they have. And I was speaking with a kind of large car dealership the other day, and they give access to their data, which includes people's social security numbers, all their credit data from when they're purchasing vehicles, to their marketing partners and vendors, and which are 40, 50 different vendors without any kind of controls or mitigating factors in place, no due diligence on the vendors, things like that. And I think that kind of, when I spoke to that finance team and explained to them the risk, it was like the first time they thought about it.
Yeah.
So with me, in addition to just that out of the box security awareness train, meeting with the people and explaining to them really what I'm seeing their risks at are and why, that seems to be making a big difference.
And also, I suppose, having discussions about risks that are relevant to them in their roles as well, because,
Mhm,
you go back, I'll use the car dealership as a great
mhm,
analogy, actually. You go from the sales team in the office who've got computers, they're using the phone, they're exposed here. And then you've got Billy the mechanic in the
mhm,
workshop downstairs who has no access really to anything that I suppose you could call a risk, apart from that really important machine that they plug into all the cars now that you
yep,
have to plug into the internet once a week to update. So,
yep,
so
yep,
again, it's educating people like Billy on what they need to be aware of and the precautions that they need to take, isn't it?
yep. Absolutely. Yeah, it's really addressing risk where people are and being able to be a human and talk to those people about those risks. And with a really large organization, it's probably impossible for the person for a CISO to dedicate that amount of time with every person. But luckily, with the clients that I'm working with, a couple hundred users, it's easy enough for me to work with the people that are, dealing with certain risks.
Yeah, no, thank you. Right, we've got 2 minutes left. I want to finish off asking your advice because I know there are a few people in here watching who are perhaps now about to go for that leadership position. And then we've got other people down who are now looking to break in. One bit of advice for those people for next year, what would it be?
Yeah. So I think don't limit yourself to a traditional cert training like I need to get my A plus, then my net plus, then my sec plus, and then I'm gonna try to do my CYSA and maybe my CISSP and then my CISM. Like, just try to plan out what you want to do in your life more than your certs. And then, you know, if you have a vision that, hey, I want to be a CISO, um, that's business training, not really
Yeah.
security training. So that's a different level of that's learning all different stuff. But security wise, what are you interested in? You want to learn how to disassemble malware? Focus on that. Don't focus on your A plus then. Focus on get good at what's important to you is what I would say.
I completely agree. And also find out what's important to you and
Hmm.
find out if you're new to the industry, like I was a couple of years ago, thinking I wanted to be a pen tester,
Hmm.
find out what that job actually means, because it's actually my idea of hell.
Right.
That some of it's fun, the bit where you're trying to break in, but the report writing is my least favorite part of any job I've ever done. So if I'd have known that, if I'd have done a bit more research at the start, it could have saved me a few wasted hours and a few $1,000s on OSC that I failed as well. I'd always like to get that in there. But
Absolutely.
from me, I've just got a couple of things I want to say before we wrap things up. Firstly, thanks ever so much to everyone again for jumping in and making this so engaging, and to you, Art, for being such an awesome guest. I hope you come on the show again in the future. And for those that aren't aware, next year we're going on the road. So the CISO Experience is going on tour. We are kicking off in Cambridge in the UK, which is my place of birth, on the 23rd of February for the first CISO Experience live, where we're going to have a very small and intimate group of people. The topic we're talking about is incident response. And the reason we're talking about incident response is because we've asked the leaders in the area what they want to hear about. So we're going to have a relaxed networking, open conversation, a bit like this, but actually in a brewery where and Richard will be there. Be good to see you, Richard. And then we're following off with London, Edinburgh, Manchester, Leeds before flying over the pond. And I think we're starting off in the summer in Washington, hopefully with then Florida, Texas, and maybe a couple of other stops. The US dates are to be confirmed. The UK dates will all be coming out in the next couple of weeks. And again, I'm going to put my email address on screen here for a couple of reasons. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please reach out. We're looking for some more guests for next year. And if you'd like to be involved in any of the physical, whether in the UK or the US, again, whether that's as a sponsor, as a speaker, we are paying for accommodation and travel if you want to be a speaker as well. Please do reach out and ask any questions you might have. But from me, thank you for making 2022 probably one of the most, well, definitely the best year of my life, actually. I've had a smile on my face every day, well, most days, having 6 children the last year, and most of that is down to, we've moaned about Christmas already off camera, haven't we? So we'll stick to that. It's been speaking to people like you are and all the other industry leaders who've given up their time to come on this show and make it such an amazing experience. Thank you all so much. And if I don't see you all before, Happy New Year. We are back on, I think it's the 4th of January for 2 episodes. On the 4th, we have got Linda Rust and Mike Warner coming on from SecuriThink to talk about CNMC and also a very exciting new product that they're about to launch. And I think we've got Barak Engel the same day, who I believe was the first ever VCISO. So that's definitely going to be worth tuning in for. And I can't remember the guests for the rest of the week. So a massive apology to all of you who are coming on. Please watch the YouTube channel. Art, thank you so much. I'll play us out with a little stinger and hope to see you soon.
Thanks.
Take care.